Hey everyone, I'm here with CT Psalmist Garry Shepard. Garry, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thank you. First of all, let me just thank you for having an interest in doing a video interview with me. This is actually my very first video interview.
Nice.
So thank you for that. Well, my name is Garry Shepard Jr. I was born in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm the oldest of five. I have three brothers and one sister. I am also a husband and a father of two boys. Um, my church is Crown of Glory Church of God in Christ, where my pastor is Pastor Jonathan Aljo. There I serve as a minister, church band driver, and I'm heavily involved in the church. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I'm also a Christian hip hop artist, as you know, my artist name CT Psalmist, and I've been doing that since 2002. So.
Nice. And we've done a written interview before where we've spoken and shared with some of the people who read the blog about your background. And you actually took a little bit of time off from the church, correct?
I did. What
What can
happened
you tell us
was
about
when I first started doing it in back in the early 2000s, I kind of got discouraged from what I saw with other artists in the direction that they were going. Because my first experience with Christian hip hop was with the Cross Movement, their album Human Emergency.
that? Okay.
So when I listened to that, because before then I didn't even know Christian hip hop existed, because I grew up listening to, the hardcore hip hop. I never knew that Christian hip hop existed till I picked up that album. So
Okay.
yeah. So
All
then
right.
from there, I listened to the Truth's album, Moment of Truth, and that's what really got me into Christian hip hop. I end up my whole discography that I had, I end up changing it from there. And then I started to write Christian hip hop songs. So
Wow. So I didn't know that about the truth. We met him a couple years ago. He came up. Did you go to that event down in Norwich?
no, I wanted to go.
Oh,
I wanted to go, but what happened was my friend Terrell was having something, and
okay.
he was having something at that time. And even though the Truth is still like my number one favorite artist, I'm a man of my word. So if I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it. So
Wow, yeah, he was incredible, and I really loved how down to earth he was. He took a picture with me and one of my youth who I went there with, and it was a great event. That's actually where I met up with Josiah, who goes by Axiom. He did this great dance to a Casting
oh,
Crown song, and I had never
okay.
seen anyone do hip hop,
Mhm.
like pop lock and b-boy type dancing to,
Right,
and
right.
then combined with like this liturgical stuff. And I don't know all the terms, but I think those are the ones. But it was the coolest thing. But so getting back to music, so once you started recording, um, tell us a bit, so for the people who haven't read the interview before, tell us a bit about what motivates you. So the last time we talked, you had just actually released the song Motivation.
Yes.
And talk to us a
So,
bit about that and what's been
okay.
going on since then.
So motivation, when I wrote that, I wrote that to like really not only encourage people, but to continue to encourage myself.
Mm,
Um, I in 2017, I had like a rough year. It was very rough for me, and yeah, it was a lot going on. And I like to say is that it was by God and His love and His mercy. He brought me out of the situation that I was in. And so with motivation is just a reminder for me to stay encouraged in God, that no matter what I'm going through, because He brought me out of the storm in my life, and that I wanted to, continue to encourage myself and people as well, to stay encouraged when you're going through your storms. And so that's when motivation came about.
that's powerful because as a writer, it's the same with me. Like a lot of my inspiration comes from something where I'm going through it. I
Right.
experience something. Some of them are like thoughts. I'll have a random thought and then I'll just like expand on it. But most of the time, it's like, man, I wish I had been able to find something that would have spoken to my situation. So let me go ahead and write this so that somebody else, you know, coming behind me can have something to look at. So it's cool that that happens in music too. What have you been working on since then? So I know you've got some stuff that you can't talk about that, you know, it's coming out. I've seen some of the plugs that you've been doing, you know, mentioning you've been in the studio, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm currently in the process of recording my EP in my friend's studio, Blaze Productions in Chicopee, Mass. But at the same time, I'm releasing like singles to kind of like keep people in the loop of what I'm doing as I'm doing the EP. So the recent single, the single that I'm actually working on now is pretty much done. Is called Triple X Life. For those that don't know, I struggled with porn and sex addiction for 16 years. And so I wrote, before this song, I actually wrote another song called I Hate You. And that was pertaining to what I went through. So with this one, this is kind of like a continuation to it. Triple X Voice is I'm basically giving people a glimpse of what a person with sex and porn addiction kind of go through in their mind mentally, the mental battle that they go through. So that's what I'm working on now. So, you know, it'll be done pretty soon. So
That's intense. And I love when Christians aren't afraid to talk about the things we don't talk about in church. Because
right.
there's a reason they keep popping up in church. It's because nobody's talking about them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially when you look at like the youth and young adult culture, you know, what they're faced with today is nothing like, you know, growing up. I remember like if there was like, you know, like the A word was said on TV, it was like, oh my gosh, you know, not before
Yeah.
8 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
Now
Yeah.
you turn on the TV at 8 and it's like, oh my God, like you know, I have to kick my 12-year-old and tell her, like, kick her out of the room to be like, hey, you can't watch that. You can't see, you know, and it's like the show Manifest or something like that, you know, like something that you think shouldn't have anything where like as a Christian you'll struggle with it, as a human you'll struggle with it, and then there's this like scene in the middle and it's hard.
Yeah,
So
it is.
do you talk to youth and young adults too? Do you do it through your music? Like, do you have other outlets that you speak about that with? Because it's a pretty courageous subject to address. Excuse me.
I haven't recently at the moment. It's been really through my music. I've actually been seeking the Lord as to how I can, because that's been that's a desire of mine, is to really speak to people that are struggling with this in the church, because there's so many that's struggling with this type of addiction, but they're so you know, guilt and shame is keeping them bound. You know, guilt and shame is keeping them bound, and you know, the fear of what people will think of them if they, you know, they were to tell that they were addicted to, you know, sex and porn. And so I've been praying about that as to how the Lord can just lead me to where I can do that, because a lot of my brothers and sisters, they need to be free. They need to be free, and you know, the first step is to, you know, go out there and just let the world know that this is what you struggle with, but God is able to redeem you. You know, and not worry about what people are going to say, because I've learned that people are going to say good or bad about you regardless. You
Right. And
know,
it doesn't matter what your addiction is. It doesn't matter what your struggle is. Everybody's got somebody somewhere is going to talk. Somebody somewhere is going to say something. Met another person not too long ago, maybe like within the last couple of years, through the spoken word circuit. And he struggled really badly with that. And he hadn't yet found his voice as a rapper.
right,
He felt like God was calling him towards that. But watching him with this struggle, you know, like he shared that he had certain website blockers on his phone and on his computer. And like, I mean, he was going really hardcore because so unlike yourself, he was a single man and
right,
still is. And so he's going through it from the approach of like, from what I understand, he's like desperately seeking a wife, you know, which may
right,
be part one. We've talked about that may be like struggle one, because it's just so
yeah,
much easier to get attacked when you're seeking something so
right.
desperately. But how is it as a married man, you know, so you're being willing to talk about it, etc. How has that helped with your relationship with your wife? Because I think of like Terry Crews, him and his
Yes,
wife,
yes.
he's been
Hmm.
speaking out, and and he's done it where they did like an actual, I had shared this with another friend of mine who's a female who was struggling with the addiction, where he and his wife went on a sex fast for 90 days, and they they abstained from it, and it brought them closer because
Wow.
they had to find other ways to be intimate. And
Right.
there's a talk about it on YouTube where he shares, like, they go in detail about what it was like in his struggle with this, and they're just wanting to be more intimate with one another, but not just through sexuality. So how, if you're willing to talk it out, like, how has it helped your marriage or hindered your marriage? Like, how have you guys come together? Because that's something your wife obviously has to be involved in, as you are speaking about it too.
Yeah, I can talk about it. I
Okay.
see that the Lord wants me to talk about this, and I'm gonna just go whatever the Lord wants me to do. That's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
So in 2017, I was facing divorce.
Okay.
It was a tough time for me. Even like speaking about it now, it's like
Mm.
I, it was to the point where my wife she was just like fed up, and she is fed up to the point where her foot was pretty much out the door. And it's from there that I realized that this, one was a stronghold in my life. My first encounter with it was a Playboy magazines in my mother's room, and I talk about this in my song "I Hate You." So
Yeah, I've heard that
oh,
one.
yeah, so I talk about it from the beginning all the way up to now. And it was tough. And when I was going through that, I would get mad easily. I was lazy. um I was emotionally unavailable for my wife. And like I said, 2017 all the way up to 2018, it was a couple months battle, like close to actually a year battle. And I tell you, the way God I thank God for his love and his mercy, because the way he did it, I'm so grateful unto God, because it was only God. It was only God that, he turned our marriage around to where, I started being a better father. I started doing things that my wife needed me to do, because, throughout our years of marriage, I wasn't the husband that I was supposed to be, because I was so bound with the addiction. And because of the guilt and shame that I had, I was a weak. Yeah, I was weak spiritually. I was, basically the devil can just blow on me, and I'll be pushed over. You know, but I thank God for, once again, His love and His mercy, because I started to see a change in myself and in my wife. And another thing another reason why I fought is because not only was I facing divorce, I was facing the possibility of not being able to see my sons grow. And I love my sons. And when I was going through this battle, I said, Lord, I don't want my sons to go through what I went through. And so during that process, I was overprotective with my kids. I was making sure I watched everything that they watched. I wanted to make sure that, they didn't come across any links. And, it was to the point where I was kind of like overdoing it, and I just, at this, once again, I just thank God, because God took it away from me. He took it completely away. Some things had to happen because, I didn't listen. But, God, He took it away, and I'm on the battlefield just fighting as hard as I can, for my family, and for especially for my sons, and for those that are going through where I've been. So
Wow, I appreciate you talking about that.
yeah,
It's we need to talk more. We need to
yeah,
talk more about the stuff that hurts,
yeah,
this stuff. And I thank you, especially being a man. We don't see a lot. I remember when I first came to church and I first saw a man cry, and I was like, wait, what? like men have feelings, you know. I never thought of it that way, you know. And there's a lot more females out there like me who they didn't grow up with that kind of model, or you know, men were the providers, not the feelers, you know. That
Right.
wasn't
That's
something, and
true.
it's not a knock against the people who are like that, but it's
Right.
something beautiful when you're able to express it, and you're
Right.
able to see that there are people out there. And so I love that you're willing to talk about it. I bet you and your wife, you know, as God brings this story full circle and just brings you together, that you'll both be able to talk, you know, kind of like maybe what Terry and his wife do. You know,
Yeah.
what a great thing to be able to see both sides and hear,
Hmm.
because I'm sure she is a strong woman. You know, I've met her when I met you guys at the Friendsgiving, but what a strong woman to be able to press through that. And so to be able to hear her side and your side, like that make a great conference
Yeah, definitely.
thing, you know, like to be able
Yeah.
to have both of you, like her talking to the women and you talking to the
Mhm.
men,
Yeah.
and you guys like together talking. So going back to the music, one of the things that touches me most about music, like I cannot sing for the life of me, you know. Maybe every now and then
Me neither.
karaoke I can kill it. But
Yeah,
you rap very
no, I
well. I
can't
love
sing
your
either.
rapping. But
Yeah, I
what
can't sing. Yeah.
okay. What I
Yeah.
love about music, though, is it has this way, like I do a series, well, I used to do a series on my blog. I'm bringing it back now to this one. When I used to blog under I Straight Ahead, I did this thing called Music and Musings, where I would like break down songs, and I would
Okay.
bring you know, like one time I did Bruno Mars with the If I Knew, and he had this
Mhm.
thing about if only I could go back to when I was 17, and I was like, there was no innocence at 17. Like, what is he talking about? You know, and like really breaking
Right.
it down to like my life. And I love that with Christian music, you guys go really, especially you guys from Connecticut, like Stack Zion going in about like
Oh
he
yeah, he's
has that
good.
The Stranger. I'm gonna
Yeah.
forget it right now. Sorry, Stack. He
Yeah,
has
that's
that
yeah.
one about
Stacks
the
the
enemy
beast.
I like, right? That
Yeah,
song
Stacks,
is just
Stacks and Zion.
yeah.
Stacks and Zabai.
Zabai,
Them
oh
two.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Zabai's new ones that he's been releasing. I can't wait for Warriors to finish for
Mhm.
Stack. But I'm looking forward. Both of them, you know, are my daughters. Like she has this picture with them, and we keep it so that we're always praying and stuff, because they're just. I love that you guys are, all of you are included in this. But in Connecticut, you're addressing real issues. You're
Mhm.
addressing life, not just what the fans want to hear, but actually going beyond what they ask for and into what they really need to hear to speak into their life. But I also
Yeah.
love that there's a realness
Mhm.
about you where you can just walk up to other kids and the kids get to see they have these role models. So,
Right.
a couple more questions for you. I hear the family in the background, which is always
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I
Wife just came in, so.
so I'll make sure we wrap it up quickly. But so just tell us, like, what do you want people to know about your music, about who you are as a person? You know, like how, as people are watching this, can they best support you, help
Okay.
you to grow? What do you want them to get out of listening to you?
Okay. Okay. So basically, my music is basically a lot of testimonial music. So each song that I write is, basically like either a story of my life or what I've been through. I like to write songs to where it makes people think. I like to write like reflective music and stuff like that. And so I've always been like that as a kid. As a way of escaping, I would just write. Back then it wasn't motivational. It was more violent than anything. But that was my way of escaping my reality that I was living in. Um, but yeah, so music has always been medicine for me. It's like it's been my medicine since a kid. And so also, if you notice with my music, I do a lot of visual lyrics, because as I was writing from my youth all the way up to adulthood, I will always spend time in the security booth. And in the security booth, that's what I did all my writing. I would look around and I would get inspired by what I see. I would get inspired by what I hear on whether it's TV or something that I read. And so that's about it with my music. I'm testimonial. So, and as far as supporting me, if you can purchase, I have 3 singles out so far. Actually, I have more. If you go on noisetrade.com/CT Psalms 860, I have like all 10 of my singles on there.
Okay.
And and also YouTube. If you can like the videos, share the videos, that'll help me as well. Even comment. SoundCloud. My tags, my social media tags are all usually the same. Either CT Psalmist or CT Psalmist 860. So I'm very easy to find. As a matter of fact, my website address is ctpsalmistmusic.com. So when you go on there, I have, the my social media links and the links to where you can get my music, and also I have blogs that I write as well.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Now, what kind of stuff do you blog?
I blog about different things. I started to blog about my upbringing in Hartford. I My music, of course. Whenever I release a single, I blog about that. I even blogged about rekindling, building a relationship with my father, and so yeah, you'll find all that on the website, and even my a bio of me as well. So
I'll have to check that out. I didn't do my homework. So I had checked it out when you first started and you hadn't started blogging yet.
right.
That's the Wix site, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember like when you first came out, I got the email and I went and looked, but you hadn't started blogging yet. That's really exciting to hear because, like I said, I really enjoy your music. So being able to hear how you speak as well,
Right.
as a voice discovery coach, that's what I work with people on. Is sometimes people will come to me and they're like, "Oh, I want to be a writer. I want to be a writer. I'll be a writer," and it's like, but you're an amazing singer." And like the way they can go in on a song, but they're trying to
Right.
blog. Or you have somebody the opposite way, like somebody who's trying to develop a rap career, but
Right.
man, the way they move people with spoken word, they don't need
Right.
all
Yeah.
the beat and stuff behind it. And they're both gifts. I remember
Yeah.
being at an event, John the Bap, when he released Endure. I remember
Yes.
one of
Oh
the other
yes.
speakers got up and had said, like, I tried this spoken word piece and he did it and it was good. But when I hear him rap, I'm so much more enthralled than when
Oh
or
yeah.
entranced than when I hear the spoken word, although
Yeah.
it was still good. And that's really what I work with people, is really knowing like
Yeah.
there's elements where we're great and then there's elements where we're good. And it's okay to work in all of them. But boy, when we
Right.
work in those areas where we're great and then
Hmm.
supplement it with where we're good, it helps us to reach other people. And so I
Right.
love that. I love how, even through art, some people
Right.
do it really well through drawing.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's still using your voice, even though you're not
Yeah.
speaking.
Yep.
So
Definitely.
what, uh,
Definitely shout out to John the Baptist, man, because
yeah.
he actually has a song on the EP too. So
Okay.
yeah, and I've brought his production is fire. I love his production. And one thing about me, also I'm very picky when it comes to like production. So I'm like, if it's too dancey for me, if I feel like a person is going to be more dancing to it and stuff like that, I kind of back away from it. So if it's something that's like storytelling or have like a reflective sound, something that I can connect with, then I'll go to it. I just don't go to like any beat that just because it sounds hot. It has to be
Yeah.
something that can be inspired to bring meaning to,
Yeah. And
So
he's great with his beats and he's
oh
got
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
across the genres. The interview I did actually that posted last week was with a gentleman, Robin Marks out of New York, who's also a beat producer. And so I
Uh-huh.
was able like to connect the two of them, which is my hope with this series. My hope with this
Right,
series isn't just to sit on and do a bunch of videos through Zoom. It's that people will get to know you guys and people will get to hear like not just us creatives and what we're doing, but also learn about like, oh, I remember that guy Gary. He went by CT Psalmist. Let me connect
right,
him with this guy who's got this beat. Or hey, these two beat producers.
right.
Juanita.
Hmm.
When I interviewed her about her beauty, and then a couple weeks later it was a beauty influencer, and I'm like, how did I never think to connect the two of them? So like right
Right,
after, as I was
right, right. Yeah,
interviewing Delaney, I was like, I need to connect you with Juanita because like, why did I not think about this? Like that's what she does. Is she's an esthetician, and you want to be one.
right.
And so it's like
Hmm.
being able to connect people, not just within my circle, but then the people that are watching this, the people that read the blog. And so that's where, when Mike Todd said, start where you are, I was like, all right, let's
Right.
do this. Thanks again to Juanita and
Amen.
John the Bat
Hmm.
for giving me the motivation and encouragement to go forward with it. So last question for you then is, what would you say to somebody that's coming up? There's a kid watching this, he's struggling, or even if life is good, but he's got some things going on, and really wants to start doing music. Like, what is your advice to the young kids coming up today?
my advice would be to definitely stay before the Lord and praying and staying in His Word, because especially entering the Christian hip hop genre, it's a tough genre to be in. It's a very tough genre to be in, and if you take your eyes off of God and you look at other artists and how they're advancing, and you look at their numbers on social media, and you look at how their branding is going and everything, and you're struggling with yours, you'll get discouraged. So I would say keep your eyes on God, study His Word, and just continue to work on your craft, and know that everybody has their own time. Your timing may not be right now, but if you keep working at it, God will eventually see you through. He will definitely see you through. So
I love that. I love that. I was just telling one of my clients, my blog, Eyes Straight Ahead, when I did it, I'd put a blog out that, like, Gary, when I tell you I spent like hours
right,
pouring over this thing, and there'd be like one like, sometimes none. But I just knew that, I got to get it out there. It helped me work on my craft. It helped me. Well, when I started this blog,
right,
I did
hmm
no marketing for it. I didn't share it. And within a year, or within actually the first 6 months, I was up to 100 followers. And I was like, what? There was like
right,
12, 13, 14 people. And, for
mhm,
me, I don't do the numbers. I mean, you notice them because you see them come in. And of course, it
right,
feels good to know, like, hey, I posted that and there's like coming in.
right,
But it's more about like when I get these emails,
right,
and you get that person who's like, hey, I never had the courage to use my voice, but because you spoke up about that, it gave
right,
me the courage to do it. And so I really appreciate that note, because like you're working on your craft. That's the point of it. You may do a YouTube video and 6 people may see it, and
right,
that's it. But those 6, Stephen Furtick one time said, that he had gotten so caught up in the numbers. He shared this
mm,
in a talk, I think, at
yep,
Elevation, or it
yep,
could have been one of his sermons, but he said he had gotten so caught up in the numbers at one point that he almost took something down because it
mhm,
hadn't gotten enough likes. And he said,
right,
but what I don't think about and what I had to consider at that point,
hmm
and I forget if he said if that it happened or if he was saying like if it could happen, is like that person who's like sitting there about to, commit suicide and sees that video, and they don't have the ability to press the like button. They don't
right,
have the ability to double tap, but yet
right,
it will change their life and they don't move forward with that. And that's what we all have to remember is I don't comment, especially if
right,
like with public stuff. I'm bad about YouTube. I'll go and I'll like something, but I'm
right,
awful. But yet it touches me. I'll sit there and watch something over and over again and hear a video. I'm trying to get better now that I'm learning about how to support people and like what
right,
does
right,
matter within the record industry.
right,
It's definitely, I understand where the numbers, but I love that point because as you do your craft, the time will
hmm
come where, Mike Todd, nobody knew him like 4 years ago,
right,
and then somebody he was sharing actually a couple weeks ago, somebody posted a 12-second video of his relationship goal series and he blew up.
right,
We
right,
never
yeah,
know what somebody's going to
hmm
see or where they're going to be from. So
right,
thank you so much for your
yeah,
time and for
you're
getting
welcome.
together and doing it live this time.
Yep,
I'll make sure that I link to the videos that you mentioned, and then, I'll make sure I add in the description where people can find you. So
okay,
again, CT Psalmist, Garry Shepard, and I hope that you guys will go watch him. Thank you so much, Gary.
thank you.